Making a scrunchie. A scrunchie or an elastic hairband is a fabric covered elastic hair tie used to fasten hair away from the face. Scrunchies are available in many different sizes, colors, fabrics, and designs. You can make beautiful and matching scrunchies from the remaining piece of fabric of your dresses. At the end of the session, you will be able to identify the measurements needed for making a scrunchie, make required calculation of fabric for making the scrunchie, mark and cut fabric for making a scrunchie, sew a scrunchie. Let's first familiarize with the tools and materials required to mark, cut and sew a scrunchie. We will need 1/4 inch elastic on a roll, fabric, matching thread, measuring tape, tailor's chalk, scissors, sewing machine. First, let's find out the measurement of elastic required for making the scrunchie. As you can see here, when you wear a scrunchie on your wrist, it perfectly fits around your wrist. So tie a measuring tape around your wrist and note the measurement in your notepad. Here, we get the wrist measurement as 6 inches. Adding an overlap of 1/2 inch on both sides gives us a total of 7 inches. This will be the measurement of the elastic required to make a scrunchie. Now let's determine the length of fabric required for making a scrunchie. Length of fabric required for making the scrunchie will be equal to 4 times the wrist size, which is 4 multiplied by 6 inches, which comes to 24 inches. Now let's determine the width of fabric required for making the scrunchie. For this, we could measure the width of a scrunchie which is already available with you. As you can see here, the width of the scrunchie on one side measures 1 inch and a 1 inch for the other side too. Now by adding a seam allowance of 1/2 inch on both sides gives us a total of 3 inches. Remember to note all these measurements in your notepad. Having noted all the measurements, first let's cut out the elastic. As per the measurements noted, measure and cut 7 inches. Now let's mark and cut the fabric. First, measure and mark a baseline of length 24 inches in the fabric. Then draw a line perpendicular to the baseline using a pattern square. Mark the width of 3 inches along the full length of the baseline as shown here. Now join all the marked points in a straight line. Then cut along the marked lines. Thus we have cut the elastic and fabric required for making a scrunchie. Now let's see how to sew the scrunchie. Now take the long rectangle fabric piece and fold it into half with right sides facing each other and aligning the cut edges. Sew the short ends 1/2 inch together to make a loop. Open the seam allowance and press with your fingers. Fold the long edges ½ inch over at both sides to the wrong side and press with your fingers. Join the elastic ends to a circle by overlapping the ends and sewing over it with a straight stitch going back and forth. Now insert the elastic in the center of the wrong side of the fabric. Bring the two folded edges together and hold the edges in place. Top stitch close to the edge all around until 1 inch over the starting point. And end with a reverse stitch. Our scrunchie is ready. In this session, we have learned how to make a scrunchie. Before we conclude, let's take a look at the key points. Step 1. Find out your wrist measurement in order to calculate the length of the elastic required for making a scrunchie. Step 2. Calculate the length of fabric required as 4 times the wrist measurement. Step 3. Determine the width of fabric required from an available scrunchie and add seam allowances to get the total width. Step 4. Mark and cut the fabric and elastic according to the calculated measurements. Step 5. Sew the scrunchie by inserting the elastic into the fabric loop. With that, we've come to the end of this session.